If someone had told me 10 years ago that I would one day betray the man I loved, I would have dismissed them outright. Infidelity was something that happened to other people, those who didn't value commitment or couldn't control their impulses. But life has a way of humbling you, of forcing you to confront parts of yourself you never knew existed, or perhaps that you never wanted to acknowledge. My name is Heather, and I'm 37 years old. I've been married to my husband Tom for nearly 12 years. We met when we were both fresh out of college, young and eager to start our lives together. Tom was everything I had ever wanted in a partner: kind, dependable, and endlessly patient. We built a life together, a good life. We had a house in a quiet neighborhood, 2 children who we adored, and careers that made us proud. By all accounts, I was living the dream. But sometimes, the dream can start to feel like a cage. Tom and I met at a friend's party during our final year of college. He was studying engineering, and I was majoring in literature. Our connection was instant, one of those rare electric moments where you just know this person is going to be important in your life. We talked for hours that night, and by the end of it, I felt like I had known him forever. We started dating shortly after, and within 2 years, we were married. Our wedding was a beautiful, intimate affair, surrounded by friends and family who all believed, as we did, that we were destined for a lifetime of happiness together. And for a while, it felt like that was exactly what we had. The first few years of our marriage were blissful. We both had jobs we were passionate about. Tom was quickly climbing the ranks in his engineering firm, and I was working as an editor for a small publishing house. We traveled, explored new hobbies together, and made plans for the future. It was everything I had ever dreamed of, and more. When our first child, Sophie, was born, our lives changed in the most wonderful way. I had always wanted to be a mother, and holding her in my arms for the first time felt like everything had finally fallen into place. 2 years later, we had our son, Ethan, and our family felt complete. But as the years went by, the responsibilities of parenthood, work, and maintaining our home began to take their toll. Tom and I were still in love, but our relationship began to change. The passion and spontaneity that had defined our early years together slowly faded, replaced by routine and the daily grind. I began to feel like I was losing myself. My days were consumed by the needs of our children, the demands of my job, and the endless list of chores that kept our household running smoothly. I loved my family, and I was proud of the life we had built, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Tom was always there, always supportive, but I could tell he was struggling too. He worked long hours, often coming home late, exhausted from the day. Our conversations became more about logistics, who was picking up the kids, what needed to be done around the house, than about our hopes, dreams, or even how we were feeling. We were living parallel lives, connected by our love for our children but increasingly distant from each other. Our sex life, once vibrant and full of passion, became another task on our never-ending to-do list. We still made love, but it was different, less frequent, less connected. I missed the intimacy, the feeling of being truly seen and desired. But whenever I tried to talk to Tom about it, he would reassure me that everything was fine, that we were just going through a phase. I wanted to believe him, but the distance between us continued to grow. I started to feel like I was invisible, like the woman I had once been had been swallowed up by the roles of wife and mother. I didn't know who I was anymore, outside of those identities. I felt lonely, even when Tom was right there beside me. It was around this time that I met Jake. He was a colleague at the publishing house where I worked, a writer whose first novel I had helped edit. Jake was everything that Tom wasn't: spontaneous, creative, and a bit of a risk-taker. He had this magnetic energy that drew people to him, and I was no exception. At first, our relationship was purely professional. We worked closely together on his book, and I admired his talent and passion for his craft. But as we spent more time together, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in years, a spark, an excitement that I had almost forgotten existed. Jake and I began to talk more, outside of work. We'd grab coffee together after meetings, or text late at night about everything from the books we were reading to the frustrations we were feeling in our lives. He listened to me in a way that Tom hadn't in a long time. He made me feel seen, understood, and appreciated. I told myself it was harmless, that I was just enjoying the attention and the connection. But deep down, I knew I was playing with fire. There was a part of me that wanted to feel desired again, to feel like a woman, not just a wife and mother. And Jake made me feel that way. The flirtation between us grew, and before long, it became something more. It started with a kiss, an impulsive, passionate kiss that left me breathless and terrified. I knew I had crossed a line, but I couldn't bring myself to stop. I wanted more. The affair with Jake was intoxicating. It was everything that my life with Tom wasn't: exciting, unpredictable, and full of passion. When I was with Jake, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. I felt like the woman I used to be, before the responsibilities of life had weighed me down. We would meet in secret, stealing moments whenever we could. Sometimes it was just a quick coffee in a hidden cafe, other times it was entire afternoons spent in his apartment, lost in each other. The thrill of the affair only heightened the intensity of our connection. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew I was betraying Tom, the man who had loved and supported me for years. But in those moments with Jake, I didn't care. I was consumed by the passion, the excitement, the feeling of being desired. I told myself that I deserved this, that I needed this, that it was just a way to reclaim a part of myself that I had lost. But the guilt was always there, lurking in the background. Every time I came home to Tom, every time I kissed my children goodnight, I felt like a fraud. I was living a double life, and the weight of that deception was crushing me. But I couldn't stop. I was addicted to the way Jake made me feel, and I didn't know how to let go. The affair continued for several months, and during that time, the distance between Tom and me only grew. I became more withdrawn, more secretive, and Tom noticed. He started asking questions, sensing that something was wrong, but I always had an excuse. I told him I was just stressed, that work was overwhelming, that I was tired. But one night, it all came crashing down. Tom confronted me, telling me he knew something was going on, that he could feel me slipping away from him. The look in his eyes was one of desperation, of a man who was trying to hold on to something that was already slipping through his fingers. I broke down. The guilt, the shame, the weight of the lies, it all became too much. I confessed everything, telling Tom about the affair, about how lost I had felt, about how I didn't know who I was anymore. I told him that I was sorry, that I didn't mean to hurt him, but I didn't know how to stop. The look on Tom's face when I told him the truth will haunt me for the rest of my life. He was devastated, shattered by the betrayal of the woman he had loved for so long. He didn't yell, he didn't get angry, he just looked at me with this deep, profound sadness, as if he had lost something he could never get back. He didn't say much that night. He just told me he needed time to think, and he left the house. I didn't know if he would come back, and for a moment, I wasn't sure if I wanted him to. I was so full of self-loathing, of regret, that I didn't feel like I deserved his forgiveness. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Tom and I barely spoke, and when we did, it was strained, awkward. He stayed with a friend for a while, trying to process everything I had told him. I didn't blame him for needing space, but it was agonizing, not knowing if our marriage could survive this. I started seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I had done what I did, trying to make sense of the choices that had led me to this point. Therapy helped me see the deeper issues, the feelings of inadequacy, the fear of losing myself in the roles of wife and mother, the craving for something more. But understanding my actions didn't make them right. Tom eventually came home, but things between us were different. The trust that had once been the foundation of our marriage was gone, shattered by my betrayal. We decided to go to couples therapy, but it was clear that the road to healing would be long and difficult. So what made me cheat? It's a question I've asked myself 1,000 times. Was it the excitement, the passion, the need to feel desired? Was it the loneliness, the feeling of being lost in a life that no longer felt like my own? The truth is, it was all of those things and more. I cheated because I was unhappy, because I felt like I was losing myself, because I was too afraid to confront the problems in my marriage. I cheated because I wanted to escape, to feel something different, something more. But in the end, all I found was pain. The affair didn't fix anything. It didn't make me happier, it didn't fill the void I was feeling. It only created more problems, more pain, more heartache. I lost the trust of the man I loved, the stability of my marriage, and the respect I had for myself. The thrill of the affair was a mirage, a false promise of something better, but in the end, it was nothing but ashes. Tom and I are still trying to rebuild our marriage, but it's a long and painful process. There are days when I wonder if we'll ever get back to where we were, if the wounds will ever fully heal. But I'm committed to doing the work, to being honest, and to making things right, even if it takes years. I've learned the hard way that there are no shortcuts to happiness, no easy fixes to the problems in a marriage. The excitement I craved was a distraction from the real work I needed to do on myself and my relationship. And now, I have to live with the consequences of my choices. What made me cheat? It was a combination of things, but in the end, it was my own weakness, my own fear, my own inability to face the truth. I can't change what I did, but I can learn from it, and try to be better for myself, for Tom, and for our family. It's a long road ahead, but I'm walking it, one step at a time.